Korea's baby product market is growing in size. We'll find out about how the sector has become competitive by visiting a recent baby fair. Intellectual property protection is an important aspect of the creative economy. We will discuss the current situation and the future areas of improvement. Smartphone technology is evolving at an amazing speed. We introduce the motion recognition sensor, which is expected to replace the keyboard and the mouse. Enhancing the taste of food and one's health with the infrared rays cooking method. We visited Zygle, which is a unique kitchen appliance that is receiving global recognition for its outstanding technology. The separated family reunion resumed after 3 years. We get personal accounts of separated families and look into the social and political significance of the event.
Hello, I'm Andrew Salmon. Welcome to Bizline. Now, in today's commercial environment, it's no longer simply about manufacturing products. For a company to be successful, it needs to license ideas and license design. In this environment, trademarks, copyright and patents are critical resources for any firm. Here in South Korea, what are the protocols? What are the protections for intellectual property? What are the risks? These are the questions we'll be asking in our interview segment. But before we go to that and to our regular features, let's first take a look at all the breaking business and economic news hitting headlines across South Korea this week.
Korea's major conglomerates are pumping more money into research and development this year. According to the Korea Exchange and the Financial Supervisory Service, the top 10 conglomerates in the nation spent more than almost $12 billion in R&D in the first half of the year. That's a nearly 20% jump compared to the same period in 2012. The Korean car industry's production has dropped for 2 consecutive years. Domestic sales of Korean auto parts and automobiles also dropped while exports fell for the first time since 2009. Experts attribute the dip in sales and production to strikes from labor unions at Hyundai Motor and GM Korea. The Korean government has decided to expand inspection into domestic and imported fishery products as consumers express concerns about the leak of radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan. This intensified checkup is likely to continue until the end of this year. Fish imports from Japan will receive inspections each time they are declared. Korean movies have attracted a record number of viewers to the theaters on several big domestic hits. The Korean Film Council says that Korean films like Snowpiercer, The Terror Live, Hide and Seek, and The Flu drew a combined audience of 20.4 million viewers in the period spanning from August 1st to the 25th. Total ticket sales added up to $131 million.
Regardless of the wider economic environment, there is one sector that consistently sees steady returns, and that is spending on children. Now, it's no secret that Koreans are the world's biggest spenders on educational services, but this sector is not restricted solely to learning. Rather like, well, babies themselves. The sector which is in real growth mode right now is the baby products market. Previously, if you were buying baby products in Korea, chances are you were buying an import. But that's starting to change as Korean firms now leap into this market with both feet. How are they doing? Well, to find out, we loosened our gags, tightened our diapers, and visited Baby Fair 2013.
Every parent would want only the best for their children. Parents of South Korea are no exception, and their wish to provide the best has led to a growth in an industry related to child rearing. But parents opening up their wallet and buying the most expensive product in the market isn't the answer. Parents are getting wiser and take time to shop around, and that has also led to the popularity of exhibitions or fairs related to babies and children's products. This baby product fair, the largest of its kind in Korea, was held recently at COEX, located in central Seoul. It was a place which began in 2000 for parents and product sellers to exchange ideas and find out the latest trend in baby products.
I'm very impressed with the baby fair. There's so many different companies from so many different countries advertising their products, and it's really great that you can try on things and touch products, and I'm very happy with the baby fair.
Parents' fervor to provide the best for their children is due to the low birth rate in Korea, which is the lowest among the OECD nations, recording 1.23 children per woman, substantially lower than the average of 1.74 children among member nations. With the low birth rate, usually one child to a household, there are more adults to pamper the baby. There is even a new term, six pockets, to explain the phenomenon, in which there are 6 adults with disposable income, 4 grandparents, and a pair of parents willing to spend money to raise one child. This also means a growing opportunity to develop products dedicated to raising children, from birth to preschool, with the related businesses estimated to be around $30 billion, a sharp rise from about $7 billion estimated in 2002. And the growth in industry means business opportunities for Korean companies in the business which moms traditionally preferred to purchase imports.
그 과거에는 국내 제품들이 질이 그렇게 해외 유명 브랜드보다 높지 않았기 때문에 해외 브랜드들을 많이 선호하는 편이었지만, 최근 들어서는 국내 기업들의 제품 그 퀄리티가 많이 높아졌기 때문에 최근에는 엄마 아빠들이 국산도 많이 찾고 있습니다.
Consumers are turning their attention to the local brands that are better at tuning in to the consumer's needs.
저도 처음에는 이제 외국 제품들을 많이 봤었거든요. 근데 점점 알아보고 조사를 해보니까 가격 면에서만 큰 차이가 있을 뿐 국내 제품도 그 기능 면이나 실용성에서 떨어지지 않더라고요. 그리고 직접 와가지고 이제 체험을 해보니까 편리한 점도 많고, 그래서 이제 국내 제품이 좀 더 신뢰가 가서 국내 제품을 선택하게 됐습니다. 네.
And with the products going through strict assessment among parents, Korean products are also recognized for their high quality. A success story can be found in this Korean stroller maker, which is expanding its customer base overseas, such as in Indonesia and China.
해외 유수 브랜드들은 한국 마켓을 테스트 베드로 삼고 직접 진출하기도 합니다. 때문에 한국 마켓을 가장 잘하는 한국 회사가 한번 직접 만들어 보는 도전을 할 필요가 있다고 생각을 했습니다.
This baby care product maker is also making headways to the overseas market after passing strict assessments by Korean users.
무조건 외국 제품보다는 한국 제품을 선호하는 엄마들이 늘어나기 시작했고, 합리적인 소비도 늘어나기 시작하는 것 같았어요. 그와 비슷하게 대만도 무조건 비싸다고 좋은 것만이 아니라 좋은 제품, 합리적인 가격, 좋은 아이디어, 이런 제품을 선호하는 것은 세계의 공통적인 거라고 생각이 듭니다.
And their efforts in listening to moms' demands have paid off, and they're now selling their products in Taiwan as well as mainland China.
I think the most big point in Korean is the design and the color, and it's the creativity, yes, of the products. But recently, why we choose Korean brand, that's because they are 100% made in Korea, and compared with the environmental issues and the safety of the production, the Korea will be a better choice.
These companies are now beginning to take off and entering a business that has grown so sharply in the recent decade. But their success didn't happen overnight, and they couldn't do it on their own, as a long runner in the baby care industry tells.
저희 한국의 그 엄마들이 굉장히 까다로운 고객 중에 하나입니다. 그 까다로운 고객들의 그 니드를 맞춰주다 보면 글로벌 스탠다드 규격에 적합한 상황이 되고, 그 글로벌 스탠다드에 적합하게 되면 당연히 경쟁력을 갖게 됩니다. 그래서 한국에서 한국에서의 그 경쟁력을 갖췄다 그러면 해외에서도 충분한 경쟁력을 갖췄다고 보고 있습니다.
Thus, by listening to the consumers, mothers speaking on behalf of their loving children, and reflecting on the products will help Korean businesses dealing with infant, toddler, and preschoolers get ahead in the competition, in the industry that will last as long as there are smiling babies.
In the late 1980s and 1990s, Korea was notorious as a market in which companies found it extremely difficult to enforce their copyrights, their patents, and their trademarks, collectively known as IPR, intellectual property rights. Things now have changed very significantly. Firstly, Korean companies are generating their own intellectual property and are demanding protection thereof. Moreover, Korea has joined the WTO and has signed FTAs, or free trade agreements, with the EU and the US. These all contain a whole range of obligations related to intellectual property. However, while the overall situation has improved, a new threat has emerged. The internet is extremely widely used across Korean society and Korean business, and the internet has brought with it a whole new range of IP-related problems. What are these problems? What are the solutions? Where are we now? Where are we going next? These are some of the questions we have for our expert interviewee in this segment. He is the Dean of the elite Seoul National University Law School. He is also a member of the Presidential Council on IP, Intellectual Property. Professor Jung Sang-jo, welcome to Bizline.
Nice to see you.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us. Thank you for your time. Let's begin with a very, very simple question. Can you give us a very, very straight, basic explanation, a dummy's guide, if you will? What actually is IP and IPR?
By definition, intellectual property is an exclusive right to protect inventions or expressions, trademarks, and so on. Economically, those intellectual property rights functions as an incentive, economic incentives for creating inventions, expressing new ideas, and so on. Intellectual property systems are designed to promote consumers benefit from innovations and new technologies.
Okay. Now, Korea, in the not too distant past, was a copycat economy. That's no longer the case. Korean companies are now leading players in a whole range of sectors. Displays, cell phones, shipbuilding, and so on. For an advanced industrial economy like Korea, how important is IP and its protection?
By analogy, intellectual property is a kind of fundamental infrastructure for our economy. Several hundred years ago, property system was the most fundamental and important infrastructure for capitalism and industrial revolution. Now, intellectual property systems are the most fundamental infrastructure and the most efficient system for operating our creative economy and knowledge economy and our current industry generally.
Okay, now let's talk about IP on the broader sort of global scale. In the past, IP disputes between companies have frequently escalated to become IP disputes between governments, as certain companies have appealed to their own governments to help them in these areas. And Korea, of course, suffered for years from this, but I believe has now been long removed from the US priority watch list. As far as you're aware, is Korea currently involved in any government-to-government IP disputes?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
However, there are several legal disputes regarding intellectual property at the International Trade Commission, and several litigations include several jurisdictions like US and Europe and Japan and several other jurisdictions. That means those litigations may involve conflicts between national sovereignty, like what is the right jurisdiction for solving those disputes, and sometimes diplomatic disputes as well. So in that sense, we are still going through several litigations and several disputes among governments.
But speaking more broadly, and again, I'm thinking back a few years when Korea was a little bit more notorious, is it fair to say that Korea has moved from being a poacher to a gamekeeper in the IP area?
The answer is yes. Our companies are very well doing in protecting foreign intellectual property rights, and government has been doing very well to protect and develop intellectual property system in Korea. And actually, all over the world, Korean companies appear not only as defendant but also plaintiff in several litigations. That means we have offensive positions and also as defensive positions as well. And probably the most threat may be China rather than the America in the near future. So we are preparing for another war with several other countries, including China.
Okay, before we go on to that, let's just talk a little bit about the domestic situation for IP in Korea. How strong are things like awareness of intellectual property rights, the legal mechanism for IPR, and of course the enforcement of IPR?
Public awareness is very important in protecting intellectual property. We cannot push people to protect intellectual property without understanding the importance and necessity of intellectual property. So we've been trying for the past 30 years to educate people and to understand the meaning, the concept of intellectual property, why it is necessary for our industry and so on. And probably the next step will be to understand how to utilize the intellectual property for the benefit of the company and for our economy. And so the next step will be to develop efficient system to manage intellectual property and commercialize intellectual property, and also to use the system for the benefit of the consumers as well.
The internet, of course, is widely used in South Korea. Every Korean uses broadband. Every Korean pretty much has a smartphone. What kind of new problems has the internet brought to the IP protection world?
Of course, over the internet, it is more easy to download contents. However, it is also easy to regulate internet uses. And we've revised our copyright law several times to have a more efficient regulation over the internet. And the real issue may be there are more conflicting interests over the internet. Over the internet, there are consumers and content providers, and also internet service providers. So we will have to figure out the best way to balance those conflicting interests over the internet.
Let's move on. Korea, of course, as you mentioned, has always been a hardware, software disconnect. And of course, there's also been a big business, small business disconnect. Currently, Korea is promoting creative industry, small businesses, and hopefully venture capital. Now, of course, if you're a Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates, one smart idea can be the basis for an entire new business. Yet in Korea, I can think of two examples myself. A number of smart businessmen with smart ideas, new inventions, have seen their inventions copied by the big boys. How should Korea be protecting the intellectual property of small entrepreneurs?
I guess there are several factors regarding that kind of difficult situation. One is probably the internal defects or faults of patent law and civil procedure. There are very vague and very difficult concept of non-obviousness of inventions, and there are very difficult procedure and litigations, and that causes a lot of money to the defendants and plaintiffs as well. That means if there are not enough money to fight against the big companies, small companies lose in the middle of litigation. That's one aspect. And another aspect is maybe the abuses of market power or dominant position by big company against small ventures, small capital venture. And there is maybe one issue of antitrust. So antitrust division of the government or competition authority may will have to be alert against any possible abuses by big companies against small venture companies.
Okay, so you're arguing for basically simplify regulations, more legal assistance, and probably more muscle to the Fair Trade Commission.
That's right.
Gotcha. Let's move on now to what is arguably the biggest business story in the world right now. That's the patent battle between Apple and Samsung in courts worldwide. US President Barack Obama recently overturned the International Trade Commission's decision to ban sales of certain Apple products. What's your analysis of Obama's decision?
My guess is President Obama is politically motivated to protect domestic company like Apple. However, his political decision may conflict or may harm to the legal decision of ITC judges. Many of the grounds that President Obama raised in his decision was already handled and discussed by ITC judges. So I guess legally speaking, President Obama may have made some mistakes from legal perspective. And also if you come to the decision on Samsung product, the President Obama may be in a more difficult position, because if he rejects the ITC decision on Samsung, he may face similar criticism as was in Apple case. However, if he agrees to the ITC decision, then he may face another criticism of trade protectionism, unfairness, and discriminating against foreign companies like Samsung may raise a serious question of protectionism and another trade war, and foreign companies do not agree to that kind of discriminatory decisions.
If President Obama does not use his veto to overturn the ITC ban on certain Samsung products, what recourse does Samsung have? Moreover, if that eventuality does occur, will this become a trade dispute between Seoul and Washington?
I guess the ITC decision on Samsung does not affect very much the Samsung's management business aspect very much. However, legally speaking, that means another discriminatory action against foreign companies, and discrimination against foreign companies raises serious question about trade relations, and that causes another trade retaliation by foreign countries like Korea and maybe China or Europe. And in that sense, Obama is in a more difficult situation than was in Apple case.
Okay. And just following on from this, obviously technology today is at an absolute premium. IPR is extraordinarily valuable. It looks as if we may be seeing similar patent wars escalating in the future. What can South Korea and South Korean companies do to prepare for this kind of evolving situation?
Korean companies and government have been doing very well in building up patent portfolio very efficiently for the past 30 years. And Korea is now aware of the necessity and demands for commercializing those intellectual property for the benefit of the country or economy in general. And so we are learning very much the experiences from American experiences. However, as a scholar studying intellectual property, I am of the view that intellectual property must be used for the benefit of the consumer and for the benefit of promoting innovations rather than preventing competitors or preventing competition in the market. So abuses by intellectual property owners will have to regulate it very strictly, and we have to figure out the best system or best balancing point between intellectual property and unfair competition.
Understood. Professor, thank you very much for helping explain some very, very complex and important issues. It's been a pleasure having you on Bizline. Thank you very much indeed. It's called motion recognition technology. Sensors attached to the person which pick up hand gestures and body movements. Right now, this technology is being applied in a range of fields such as sports, leisure and gaming, but that is just the beginning. Right now, we have the human sensor, which actually enables us to be our own keyboard and our own mouse. Could this technology be leading us to the ideal of computing, the human-computer interface? This is the question. Let's take a look.
People handle holographic images freely in the air only by hand gestures in a movie. People would also be able to bend and toss images in the air like objects. Let's explore gesture recognition technology, one of future core technologies that are expected to replace conventional input user interfaces such as a keyboard, a mouse, and a controller. Gesture recognition technology that detects objects via sensors has been used in various applications in the real world for some time. For example, an ultrasonic sensor of an automatic door is one of motion sensors, and a series of sensors that can detect human body movements in 3 dimensions have been developed recently.
손가락의 움직임을 좀 더 국부적으로 감지를 해서 컴퓨터를 굉장히 쉽게 컨트롤한다든지 로봇이나 인간이 만든 여러 가지 발명품들, TV, 오늘 가정 내 자동화 이런 걸 위해서는 인간의 움직임을 잘 감지한다는 건 굉장히 중요한 기술이죠.
Amid growing interest in gesture recognition technology, this new input device won a fervent response from people. Early this year, a startup company in Canada introduced a demo video in YouTube illustrating a variety of uses for the armband that detects motion, which grabbed people's attention right away before its official rollout. Connect is another solution based on gesture recognition technology that wowed the world before Mayo. Connect captures video data of overall body movements via a motion sensor, enabling users to enjoy dancing or workout games that use all parts of the body. Meanwhile, Leap Motion boasts sensors that are up to 200 times more sensitive than Connect's sensors, enabling a user to control a computer by analyzing hand gestures precisely in 3 dimensions. Connect and Leap Motion's source technologies are open to developers, driving the ICT industry to engage in fierce competition of developing new gesture recognition applications based on them. In fact, Markets and Markets, a global market research and consultancy firm, forecasts the gesture recognition market will reach $625 million by 2015 at a compound annual growth rate of over 25%.
TV 앞에 앉아 있는 사람들의 동작을 감지해서 TV를 조정한다든지 휴대폰에도 동작 감지하는 것들이 요즘 굉장히 많이 부착되고 있거든요. 얼굴에 눈의 초점을 읽어서 그 사람과의 대화를 시도한다든지 안구 인식 기술이라든지 휴대폰에 쓰이는 기술들은 굉장히 빠르게 발전하고 있습니다. 그런 의미의 동작 인식 기술들은 한국이 사실은 세계를 리드하고 있다고 봐도 틀린 얘기는 아닙니다.
This is a Korean firm that has been developing motion sensing solutions based on Connect technology. By recognizing one hand for mouse control and the other hand for clicking, the company's solution allows its users to flip screens for web browsing and to click or drag a mouse only via hand gestures. It is similar to the Leap Motion interface that is expected to replace a keyboard and a mouse. Motion sensing technology has been also applied to rehabilitation solutions for the disabled.
현재 장애인학과 교수님하고 같이 시장 조사를 하면서 실제 어떤 동작이 장애인들한테 재활 치료가 필요한지에 대한 등급부터 동작까지 다 조사를 하고 있어요. 그래서 그 조사를 통해서 만들어진 제품은 장애인 개인이 집에서 어떤 프로그램을 다운로드 받아서 이제 재활 치료를 받을 수 있는 동작을 하게 되고, 단순히 거기서 끝나는 게 아니고 네트워크 연결이 되어 있으면 이제 의사 선생님들이 그 재활 치료에 대한 결과치까지 보고 판단할 수 있게끔 그 시스템을 구축하고 있습니다.
In addition, the Korea Institute of Science and Technology has recently developed a virtual golf coaching program based on gesture recognition technology. The solution precisely analyzes a user's posture for a golf swing through sensors that are mounted on various parts of the body to detect motion. It allows a user to obtain comprehensive workout data, including overall body movements, speed, and weight, measured by a pressure sensor on the bottom.
공간의 제약을 받지 않고 편하게 코칭을 받을 수 있었다는 부분이 가장 장점인 것 같고요. 그리고 또 코칭을 주는 정보 자체가 상당히 상세하고 받아들이는 입장에서 좀 기분 좋게 표현을 해주니까 그런 부분에 있어서도 상당히 긍정적인 것 같습니다.
What is the range of motion that the sensor can detect? A professional golfer can swing a club at a speed of over 100 kilometers per hour, similar to the average speed of a car on a highway.
일반적인 핸드폰에 들어가 있는 가속도 센서보다 5배에서 10배 정도 빠른 요소 기술이 개발되어서 적용되었습니다. 지금 현재 최고로 빨리 작동할 수 있는 동작 범위는 초당 2000도, 즉 1초에 7바퀴, 6바퀴에서 7바퀴 회전하는 그런 속도를 측정할 수 있는 센서 시스템이 적용되었습니다.
This is different from the conventional virtual golf rounding programs because it focuses on the analysis of a player's posture instead of shot tracking. Therefore, this interface can be applied to various fields other than golf.
로봇이나 컴퓨터 입장에서는 인간을 이해하는 게 굉장히 중요한 기술이거든요. 그러니까 물론 음성으로도 인식을 하지만 얼굴 표정 혹은 몸의 움직임, 지시하는 거 이런 것들을 얼마나 잘 이해하느냐에 따라 소통이 굉장히 자연스럽게 이루어질 수 있다는 것이죠. 앞으로는 우리가 지금 키보드나 마우스 같은 것들을 대부분 쓰고 있는데 그런 것들이 불필요해지는 그런 상황으로 가게 될 겁니다.
Gesture recognition solution is an input interface that is expected to free our hands in the future. Soon, keyboards and remote controllers that have been with us as the necessities for daily life may vanish in the mist of history.
Now, you may not realize it because these substances are invisible to the naked eye. But every time you stand cooking in front of your gas cooker, you're actually being exposed to harmful substances. In response to this, oven manufacturers are shifting their cooking method from gas flame to infrared ray. Now, leading this kind of science fiction trend in South Korea is this week's hidden champion. Let's meet a company called Zygle.
The most common way of cooking is by using the heat, but not a lot of people are aware that this common practice puts people's health at risk by exposing them to harmful material. To solve this problem, a well-being cooking appliance with a new concept has emerged. The new product promises to change culinary culture forever for the better by enhancing the taste of food in a healthy way. Housewife Hong Mi-jong is busy preparing a meal for the family. She rarely cooks pork belly at home, but ever since she purchased the new kitchen electric appliance, the family has eaten out far less than before.
무엇보다 이제 연기도 안 나고 기름도 안 튀고 그리고 보통 기름 같은 거 구우면은 발암 물질 그런 것들도 염려되는데 적외선으로 하니까 그런 것도 안심되고 참 만족하면서 쓰는 제품이에요.
Domestic small and medium-sized company Jaigul created the world's first one-of-a-kind cooking device with a unique twist. The product has brought many changes, including innovation in the kitchen. Jaigul has upgraded the discomfort of existing kitchen electric appliances by developing a product that meets the latest in consumer needs amid a well-being trend.
기본적으로 냄새, 연기, 기름팀이 없이 좀 만들어진 특허 제품인데요. 이게 저기 한국뿐만 아니고 전 세계적으로 특허 한 300~400개 정도 나와 있습니다.
The conventional cooking method uses heat that comes up from the bottom, but Jaigul uses infrared rays that start the heating process from the top, which then creates radiant heat at the bottom grill, which cooks food thoroughly from both sides. Jaigul has received good marks for preventing harmful material exposure, unlike gas stoves.
취사 연료로 공급되는 가스는 음식을 조리하는 경우에 유해 물질 발생하게 되는데요. 대표적인 것이 이제 일산화탄소, 이산화질소, 그리고 VOC로 통칭하는 휘발성 유기 화합물, 기타 이제 미세먼지 등이 있습니다. 이런 것 등이 급성으로 노출되는 경우에 기관지에서 기침이라든지 가래 배출을 유발시키고 음식하기를 좋아해서 주방에 머무르는 시간이 많은 사람이 그렇지 않은 사람에 비해서 폐암 발생이 3배 내지 4배, 8배까지 높다는 보고가 있었습니다.
Studies show that Jaigul, through its infrared rays, has a deodorizing effect on materials like ammonia, formaldehyde, and benzene. The company had to overcome many obstacles in order to develop a unique product that's never been introduced worldwide. It started with choosing the right hot grill pan and the right source of heating. The challenges continued even after the product was made.
특허 제품이 됐다는 얘기는 이제 기존에 없다는 제품이었거든요. 그러니까 기준이 없다 보니 표준이 없었습니다. 표준이 없이 이제 인정을 내다 보니까 한국에 인정내는 것도 어려웠지만 특히 해외 수출 일본이라든지 유럽이라든지 미국에 처음 가지고 나가니까 이게 그릴인지 오븐인지 그 사람들도 기준을 못 잡는 거예요. 그래서 일본 같은 경우는 한 14개월 걸렸고요. 유럽 같은 경우는 8개월에서 9개월 걸렸고 미국도 한 1년 걸렸습니다.
Since Jaigul heats with infrared rays, there are concerns that cooking time might take longer, especially for meat.
자이글은 위에서 한번 익혀주고 밑에서 또 한번 익혀주고 빛이 속에서부터 익혀주기 때문에 3중으로 익혀줍니다. 자이글에서 3분 조리했을 때 일반 후라이팬 대비해서 속까지 익는 게 자이글이 훨씬 빠릅니다. 사용 간편, 세척 간단, 활용도가 높다고 말씀을 드릴 수가 있습니다.
Jaigul is especially popular in Japan, where there is a culture of grill cooking when families get together. So it is no surprise Jaigul ranked first in sales for electric appliances at Japan's largest home shopping company. It has become popular as people begin to recognize its functions and effects. At one restaurant, the customer's order is first cooked on a grill. Then it's cooked again on Jaigul, which is placed at each table.
고기 냄새도 안 배고 자신이 먹고 싶은 고기의 그 질감, 그러니까 익힘 정도를 판단하기 때문에 아무래도 손님들이 만족하는 경우가 많습니다.
People are welcoming the idea of using Jaigul for cooking meat at a barbecue restaurant.
연기가 덜 나다 보니까 고기 냄새 같은 것도 더 안 배어서 좋은 것 같아요.
This is pretty innovative, especially that the heat is coming from up top. And I noticed that the pan has a drainage angle, and so it looks like a lot of the fat and oil and grease is going in there. So I'm a pretty health conscious person, so I think that's a really good selling point.
Jaigul has become a smart and safe cooking device that can provide visually appealing and tasty food through a healthy method. The Korean technology has taken a small step into the world, which is expected to create a huge impact with a product that is sure to satisfy the global customers.
They are the most tragic legacy of the Korean War. The divided families have been separated for the last 6 decades by the world's most heavily armed frontier. And yet for them now, there is one ray of hope. Following the agreement between both Korean governments to reopen the Inter-Korean Industrial Park at Kaesong, they also agreed to hold a separated families reunion event sometime after Chuseok, the Korean Thanksgiving holiday, which falls in late September. Does this mean we're now in for an era of trust building and reconciliation on the Korean peninsula? Well, that's open to question. But regardless of the bigger news, this development does hold out the hope for a few divided family members to see long-lost relatives one last time.
South and North Korea agreed to hold the first reunions in 3 years for families separated by the Korean War for 6 decades. The agreement was reached at the Red Cross Working Level Talks on August 23rd, reflecting the latest sign of warming ties between the two Koreas.
어느 때보다도 분위기는 좋았습니다. 개성공단과 관련되는 정부 당국자 회담이 또 성과적으로 이루어졌고 이어서 열렸던 적십자 간의 실무 회담이었기 때문에 또 뭐 복잡한 문제를 다루는 그런 회담이 아니라 인도적인 그런 문제를 다루는 회담이었기 때문에 더더욱 다른 어떤 때보다는 좀 좋았던 것 같습니다.
I think that from now on, I think the inter-Korean relations is going to be more dialogue mode rather than confrontational. That's the first implication we can draw. Second implication, actually, through this dialogue, we have seen the possibility of maintaining the dialogue between the two Koreas on humanitarian issues, despite all the very hostile atmosphere between the two Koreas.
The two Koreas held the first family reunion in 1985. After a 15-year hiatus, they arranged 18 face-to-face and 7 video reunions from 2000 through 2010, allowing 21,000 people to meet in person. The reunion program was suspended after the North's shelling of a South Korean border island in November 2010. Of the total of 128,000 South Korean applicants, only 57% are still alive. And of the remaining 72,000, 9% are over the age of 90, 40% in their 80s, and 30% in their 70s, accounting for almost 80%.
죽기 전에 보고 가야지. 15살이 헤어졌는데 이번이 못 간다 그러면 나는 그냥 죽어요.
Last weekend, the Korean Red Cross randomly selected a list of 500 South Korean potential candidates.
정신없지만 기쁘니까 어쨌든 1차부터 2차, 3차까지 가야 될 거 아니야. 이제 앞으로도 될지 모르지만 일단은 기분 좋지.
이산가족들이 대부분 다 고령이십니다. 그래서 고령자 분들이 좀 많이 선정될 수 있게끔 고령자 우선 그 원칙을 하나 저희들이 갖고 있었고, 그 다음에는 가족 관계를 좀 고려를 합니다. 이게 뭐 직계라든지, 그 다음에 부부라든지 그러한 분들이 좀 많이 선정될 수 있게끔 가족 관계를 고려하는 그러한 인선 기준에 따라서 후보자를 선정을 하게 됐습니다.
The list will be cut down to the final 100 after interviews and medical exams, while ensuring candidates still have living relatives on the other side. At the same time, Mount Kumgang, which has been shut for 5 years, will also be under checkups and repairs to facilitate the reunions. The schedule seems very tight compared to the past 50 days of preparations.
Because there are some pressure felt by both Koreas. First, I think North Korea needs to show itself to the international community is going to be more reconciliatory. Second, I think South Korea also we have about 700,000 members of separate family. They are dying and they are aging. They are very old. They are at the age of 70s and 80s. So before they pass away, I think the South Korea needs to have many opportunities as it can to resolve that issue permanently.
Although the agreement was reached rather smoothly, there were several issues on the table that both sides struggled to hold fast to their own views. The first issue was the venue. The South hoped for Seoul and Pyongyang, while the North insisted on Mount Kumgang.
자주 만나는 그런 과정을 통해서 서로가 좀 신뢰를 쌓게 되고, 그렇게 되면 또 북측 입장에서는 금강산 관광 문제도 자연스럽게 얘기하기 좋은 그런 그 계기가 되지 않을까 하는 그런 생각들을 뭐 했을 수도 있죠.
The size of the reunions was another issue. Seoul proposed 200 people per meeting, but Pyongyang 100.
From North Korean perspective, the size of separate family member reunion is another concern, because actually it's not cost-free. They have to secure at least the people and then get them ready for the meeting. So dress up and also wash them and dress up, all these things. So South Korea made a reasonable concession to keep the momentum of meeting of separate family members.
After the September's face-to-face meetings, 2-day video reunions are scheduled for October 22nd and 23rd for 40 families from each side. And the Red Cross officials agreed to meet again in November for further discussions regarding making the reunions a regular event, as well as allowing families to exchange letters and to find out whether their loved ones are still alive.
North and South Korea agreed to resume the reunion of separate family in 3 years. I think the most important meaning or implication we can draw is that the inter-Korean relations is going to be in a mode toward the reconciliation rather than confrontational.
Many hope this round of family reunions will be the starting point for regular meetings that can alleviate the 60-year-long plight and sorrow of aging and dying separated family members in the two Koreas.
And that's all we have time for on Bizline this week. But do tune in again next week. We'll be looking at South Korea's 3D industry, seeing how this sector is coming up with new technologies, new ideas, and new jobs. We'll also be taking a look at the field of big data analysis and seeing why this sector is very much in the spotlight at present. So, thanks very much for watching. I'm Andrew Salmon, this was Bizline. See you next week. Goodbye.